As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Pint Night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Welcome back to another episode of Cutting the Distance. Today I'm here with Ryan Lampers. He's back. I think he's the first guest to be on 3 times, but I always enjoy our conversations. And we're going to go back. We're going to look at some Q&As from some of you out there. We're going to go back, look at his 23 season, kind of anything that was different, kind of what he had to do, or like any little nuggets he can pull out of those hunts for us. And then dive into what worked and what didn't. And then also jump into some health and fitness topics, and then his recent wolf hunt that he was just on, and then what he has coming up moving into next year. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Ryan. Welcome.
Thank you, Jason. Much appreciated. Excited to be back.
Yeah, we were trying to record this yesterday, and you were on a wolf hunt and kind of pushed us back. So I'm glad to be able to have you jump on and get on the podcast today. And I'm gonna save some of my questions for you on the wolf hunt as we get into the podcast on some of your food choices you made on the wolf hunt, kind of your strategy, to kind of double up on, is it winter range deer scouting and trying to get a wolf hunt, like kind of, making sure each trip has multiple reasons and meaning. So we'll jump into that in a little bit. But first, we're going to jump right into listener Q&A. Once again, if you have questions for me or my guests, please email them to us at ctd@phelpsgamecalls.com, or social media, messaging, emails, any of that, and we'll do our best to get them on here. So the first question it was pretty much the same question from both Jonathan Uresti, hopefully I didn't butcher his name too bad, and Lucas Johnson. What does your off season look like as far as workouts, your season prep, scouting, and nutrition?
Yeah, I guess we're in off season, right? I don't know that there's an off season anymore. There's not
Jason. Yeah, I was going to say our off season used to be like November to about July or August, but now it seems like we've figured out a way to fill those in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few gaps, and we're in the gap right now, I'd say. Yeah, good question. I think I've been asked this a lot, and I don't have really anything exciting to talk about when it comes to exercise and all that kind of thing. I've got a home gym downstairs. I try to keep up with my wife. She gets down there early every morning. This time of year when I'm not hunting, I spend a good amount of time down there. We've got a rower and all kinds of equipment that we can get after it on. But my number one, and I think it always will be, always has been, routine is just hiking with weight. Where I live out here in the country, so we've got all kinds of space to just roam, and we've got a little loop here. We can take it 1.75 miles with a weighted backpack, or we can take the longer route or go up on the hill behind us and put in a good handful of miles. And, that is and always will be, I think, my most effective way of preparing for the next hunt, the future hunts that I have. It's just what you do in the mountains. It's the most important. And you get a lot out of hiking with weight. I think just going out and putting a ton of miles on without weight is good. But I'm just throwing, anywhere from just 25 to sometimes go up to 60 pounds on the back and going for it. And so that really helps me out. I think it keeps your core strong, just keeps those muscles tuned in. Those are the ones that you really need to function well on the mountain.
So there's like no secret. You're not like getting up every morning, slamming down, your pre-workout. You're not working out for an hour and a half in the gym and then, doing cardio. It's what you need to do to be. There's no secret workouts, or you're not, CrossFitting every day. It's just doing the functional, what you're going to be doing in the mountains.
It is. And
workouts.
We do get up early and we put some time in downstairs. I love the rower. we've just got a cheap old rower downstairs, and I like getting on that thing and just crushing it for 40 minutes. It really gets your heart rate up, and it puts the screws to you. So I love that.
Yep.
But then just throwing around, pushing and pulling heavy things, that really helps in the off season as well. I definitely don't lift like I used to. Used to do a lot more in the gym, things like that. But I'm not a CrossFit guy. I don't have any secrets there. I just try to stay in as good a shape as I can. And most of that comes from, like we said, there's not a lot of off season now. So we're always spending time in the mountains. We're always having weight on our backs. Now I'm cheating a little bit these days. I turned 50 this year, and last few years we've started using pack animals a little bit more. We've used things like llamas, which gets a lot of the weight off your back. Now I'm into the goats, and I'm using those a ton. And I'll go when I do my walks. I just take the goats, and they come with me, and just to keep them in shape. Because now a big part of my off season is making sure my animals are in shape to keep up with me. And so that's been a lot of fun, and that's kind of a new thing that I'm doing now. But as far as nutrition, it's always the same. Again, nothing real secret. We just try to eat clean throughout the year. During the hunts, outside of the hunts, my wife keeps me on track with that. Try not to pound, too much sugar. We're not like 100% off all sugar. We've got kids. We don't do it to the extreme, but I think eating clean to the best of your abilities really helps, and it definitely keeps the inflammation down. And we've talked about inflammation almost to exhaustion these days, me and my wife, but it's important. And I feel like that's what's really helped me in these later years. I feel better now than I felt in my 20s by a mile. When I go out and do 10 days and we're crushing miles, double-digit miles every day, I don't come back sore anymore. And a lot of that is some of the supplements I take. I do a lot of turmeric and CBD and stuff like that. No secrets there. But then I'm not pounding all this extra sugar during the hunt. So I'm trying to keep from inflaming my joints to where I just don't feel good. And then, just clean eating in the off season and things like that. So no secrets there, really.
I like it. Yeah. It's, I'm the yo-yo where I eat bad and then eat really like the extreme. Mental clarity, like your inflammation in your knees, your joints, your hips, like everything goes away and you feel better. And then you always wonder why you relapse back into that. Sure. But definitely clean eating. And then for me, it's just as much of a mental game. When you're eating clean, there's no fog, clear mind. And you and I have talked a little bit with some of your things too. You've probably talked on the podcast about doing carnivore every once in a while and kind of mixing it up and things like that. And that's always been real interesting to me. Yeah. Yeah. And I've working with your wife, she's now my doctor, had some, I don't beat the drum. I don't think I've ever even talked on the podcast about like testosterone. Like we talked and I'm, man, why the hell am I wanting to go to bed at 7:30? Like when we were running the business early on, like there were days you'd go to bed at 12 or 1, just when your work was done, you were done. Right. And like, what is going on? And got with Dr. Hill and, testosterone, like in the high 200s for a 40-year-old guy. And it's like, what? And, kind of changed my life, and I don't know whether it's attributed to eating well or it's probably both, got on some testosterone and feel amazing. And then that helped with the inflammation in itself, like just getting the hormones balanced. And, and then she thought I should change my diet a little bit where I was eating real heavy carnivore. And there's a lot of unknowns, right? If you're doing carnivore, like, can you have elevated triglycerides and elevated LDLs, and is it still safe? And she just got real worried because without really knowing, she's like, well, maybe we should not eat so much fatty meat. And so we've made some changes, but I feel amazing doing it. I just don't want to like feel amazing, but then kick over of a heart attack because I got some numbers way out in left field. But it's that combination. The last 6 months has been amazing. Like just getting hormones balanced back out, eating, and everybody says, well, what are you eating? Cause I've lost about 60 pounds in the last, 6 months. And it's just like, I think of it, there's no specific diet, just like close to the earth, right? Like if it comes out of the ground, if it lives on the ground, like
bingo,
it checks all the boxes. Like, and that it's just like clean eating. I'm not afraid to have a few blueberries or strawberries here. I'm not afraid to eat sweet potatoes. But like if the rice has got to go through a factory and get stripped of its husks and stuff, like and now I'm very extreme because I it's easy for me to relapse and go back. And, if it lives on the ground, a lot of deer and elk, but I feel amazing right now.
Well, and that's something to talk about too. I didn't even think about it when you mentioned like your regimen, but finding a good doctor, I think, is really important, especially when you get up there in age. A lot of dudes, guys and gals, hormones are a big, big thing. And, a lady like my wife who does a lot of blood work and tests people's hormones and tries to regulate them and get them dialed in, it's really important. Like it's amazing how you can go from, like you said, wanting to go to bed early, just waking up without that drive, without that winning drive to go. All that changes when you dial in your hormones a little bit, whether it's testosterone or estrogen for ladies. So we're very blessed to know Doc Hill, because she gets us to that perfect point where you just crush it. You feel like crushing it. You wake up feeling good. You got that winning hormone drive. And today, it's shocking how many guys out there have low test. It's just like unbelievable. Even guys in their 20s, 20s, 30s. It's not like it used to be. Guys are just whatever. If it's environmental, who knows? The verdict isn't in yet on what's causing this, but a lot of guys are suffering from lack of test.
My cousin, very athletic, very active, lifts weights all the time. Like he was at similar numbers to me at like mid 30s, and it's just why and how come. But I feel great. With the changes, it's all kind of dialed in, and like Hillary asked you these lists of questions like before and after, kind of gauge. And I said it was weird, like you didn't realize how bad it was until you got to see like the instant change on it. And like my best analogy was like before my weekend looked like, well, I might accomplish these one or two things and I want to sit and watch like hunting on YouTube or sit around the rest of the day. Now it's like put 20 things on my list and make sure they're checked off before the end of the day. Like this motivation, this drive that I used to always have is like back versus, cool. Kind of being a lazy ass around home on the weekends. It's like, you've got this drive again to just crank through and get things done. So it's mental as well as, the physical changes.
Yeah. I mean, testosterone, it's the winning hormone for us guys. We need it, and it needs to be at a certain level for us to just crush it in life. And, it's very important. Yeah. So if anybody gets anything out of this podcast, it's like, man, if you're feeling rotten and you're off season, you're just, like you said, you're just wanting to sit down into the day, just watch movies and eat junk food and not motivated to go crush it in the mornings, maybe go find yourself a really good doctor who can take your blood, go through it, look at your panels, see what's missing.
Yep. The next question comes from my financial advisor, Jeff Bloomquist. He put, what are your top 3 things that you attribute to your consistent success of killing more mature animals? And it doesn't have to be 3, just kind of what are your top approaches? And I'm very careful, like we all do this for different, and maybe I shouldn't even have to explain this, but we're all out there. Like if your goal is just to put a spike in the freezer, we're not saying that's not the goal, but Ryan, any of you that do or don't know it, like it's very easy to look at what he does and realize like, all right, that top level animal, and that's what you're out there for. You're pursuing that challenge. And so this is geared towards when you get to the level of having all these other accomplishments or abilities below you, like when you target mature animals, and I would say there's different levels to that, right? Where some guy might be like, I want a 4.5-year-old deer that scores this. Like Ryan goes out there with an expectation or a challenge to kill, a top 5%er. Kind of what do you attribute that success to at that level?
Yeah. I think it's different for everybody. I think for me, I just know that I have a drive that might be a little bit more intense than some of the folks around me, some of the other folks that I've hunted with even. I don't really want to settle. And so my drive is just a competition with myself to really do whatever it takes, literally, however far it takes to hike, however many days it takes. That's always kind of on the table. And I try to set these hunts up for that. I always try to do 10-day trips so that I've got the time to make this thing happen. And, while you're in the field, I think the willingness to put my body through whatever, go wherever. I'm not afraid to go down to bottom, 2,500 feet down and then right back up to the top if it means I might have a slight opportunity to seal the deal on a mature animal. So I think drive is the one thing that's really hard to explain. My drive is just very intense when I'm out there. This is my favorite thing to do in life, is to do this thing, and that's target mature animals out there in the mountains. And then a lot of it is also, just all the time that you put into the off season, whether it's your map work, your e-scouting, your dialing in the meals that you're going to take with you, the gear that you take with you, all these different things just kind of all add up to being well prepared out there. And, in the end, you're not getting pulled out of the mountains prior to you sealing the deal for something trivial, something.
Yep.
I'm also very lucky, and I love to prop my wife up as much as I can. But the reality of it is I wouldn't be able to do any of this if I didn't have an amazing wife who literally she's so independent if she needs to be. She can take care of anything when I'm out there. So there's really no problems that I have to deal with when I'm in the mountains. I'm not out there worried about much. If there is an issue, I'm lucky if she even tells me about it on my inReach. She just takes care of it. So, a lot of the success comes from just having a partner that is at that level,
Yep.
And then having the drive and all the preparedness around that, I think really has helped me.
That's awesome.
in this thing.
So let me kind of see if I can get to the inside of your head. So this drive that you talk about, this competition, maybe with yourself or not wanting to let yourself down. So, I mean, is there ever times during a hunt where you even have to come on, don't let yourself down, or is it just not even a question anymore where you're just, this is what needs to be done, we're going, you don't even have that conversation with yourself anymore? Or is there some thought, is that really the best play? Are you just we're going to go over there, see what happens? And
yeah.
How does that conversation, because I think if somebody's not at your level, that's a lot of what pops up, right? There's well, I really don't know if climbing down in that 3,000 feet really gives me a better opportunity or a chance, and so you'll talk yourself out of it.
And I think, I don't think there's any 20-year-old that is going to have that because they don't have the experiences built up. As you do more hunts and you have these things happen, I can't tell you how many times, and you've had the same thing happen many, many, many times as well. It's just, you keep working at it, it can happen so fast. And with elk hunting, it's to the utmost degree. It just happens in a matter of 30 seconds. You go from this low, man, is this ever really going to happen? And you're just fighting with yourself. I don't know. I mean, maybe these next 4 days are just kind of a waste because we haven't had any luck. And then in about 3 minutes from that point, you just arrowed a bull and he's down. And it happens like that so often. And I think once it's happened to you a few times or a couple dozen times, it's always there. You just know success can happen at any point out there, even when it's the slowest of slow. And, the weather's been junky and the bulls aren't talking and there's people everywhere, all it takes is just a few minutes and things turn on a dime.
Yep.
And when you've had that experience, I think that just gets ingrained into you. You don't get down as much because one more ridge, next coulee, you could glass across and pick up that one buck, and that's all it took. And so it's hard to explain to people, but I think, we've just been doing this a very long time. So I don't have the mental that I have now. I didn't have that back in my 20s. I was more willing to give up and just get down. This hunt is not worth being out here. I might as well go somewhere else. But now, as you've gained all this experience, you just know it can turn on a dime. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. I think one of the tough, you mentioned the slow times and there, I think it's different. If you're on a hunt that is just on fire the whole time, but just opportunities not coming, that will keep people more involved. But in the end, those super slow hunts that you finally find your first elk on the 8th day and you still kill it, the result's still the same, right? We went there, we accomplished what we wanted to, but the hunt ahead of time was different. I think that's what, what you had mentioned kind of kind of resonates with me is that I'm still able on, 6 or 7 days. Yeah, you get down a little bit, but you keep kind of grinding, and you know that in the end, there's the possibility this is still going to end up in the same spot of the very action-packed hunt, or it's the same result. And we've proven that. We had 20 chances throughout the hunt, but none of them you were able to capitalize on where you capitalize on the one. It works into your mental game. And then in future hunts, you're like, well, I've been here before. I don't need to quit. Like we've been in this exact situation and know how it's going to play out or can play out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and this is so cliche to say, but I think if you find yourself throughout the day on a hunt, just continually saying things like, oh, this sucks. Like, man, this is never going to happen. This is brutal. You're screwing with your head. And, that's one thing that I found now. Trying to stay positive is very important. Just knowing that it could happen and just expecting it could happen at any point. It's all in your head. But if you are out there and you have a hunt partner that's just so down and sour and always like looking for a reason why it sucks to be out there, and throughout the day it's just a lot of negativity, that is a surefire recipe to have a hunt fail and either pull you out of the mountains early, or you're just not doing what you should be doing. You should be positive, and you should be willing to just know that, man, it's just could be that ridge. It could be one more hole. It could be tomorrow. Weather could turn. I mean, you should be out there expecting it to happen and waking up. And again, cliche, but waking up and just, this is the day that it's going to happen. And with that comes success for sure.
Yep. And we take it to the point where it's like overly positive, overly optimistic. You might not have seen a deer in your area for the last 7 days, but you wake up, tell your buddy like, hey, this is the day we kill a big, we double up or we kill big bucks. And it's like, I don't want to say it's a little fake, but you're just like, you're just reminding yourself like, this is the day we're going to get up, like, maybe pick everybody up and keep them going. And the positive mental, and we've talked about it a ton on here, is having good hunting partners where if one guy does get down, the other guy won't let him get too down, and you're able to feed off of each other. And it's definitely worked in the past to kind of keep somebody going or not want to, the worst thing you'd want if you're trying to talk somebody into quitting and they say, oh, let's go, like it's over. But if that guy is, mentally strong at that time, it definitely helps.
Well, I've hunted with people over the years, I'm sure you have as well, that are just negative people, right? They may be fun at times, but they're just negative people. That's the last guy I want in my hunting camp. I just walk away from that. I'll always look. I have a very small list of guys that I hunt with today. Still love hunting by myself. I really enjoy hunting with my daughter, but I've got a small group that I hunt with, and the guys that I hunt with now, some of their skills are just that they never quit. They never give up. They're not ones to say, I just want to give up and go back. Let's just get out of here. These guys that I hunt with now, they don't do that. They will go that extra mile, and they will go wherever it takes to make success happen. So I think that's extremely important. And it's a hard thing to kind of weed out those guys that could be just too negative. But success is determined by having a really good hunting partner sometimes.
For sure.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Next question comes from Bryant Sentman out of Tall Timber Productions. Have your tactics evolved or changed over the last decade or so, archery elk hunting? Have you found yourself changing the way you did it, or is it still pretty consistent to how you started?
You really want me to talk about this, Phelps game calls?
A little. I know we're going to talk a little bit about raking and a little bit more spot and stalking, but let's hear it.
Okay. Yeah, it has changed. It has changed a lot. And a lot of the change has come from where I am now versus where I used to be. You know, I came from your neck of the woods. You know, we were Washington guys. And thick country, hunting rosies and in timber. And it very much a calling game, you know, very much a calling game. And so I was basically taught like the best way to get big bulls in was to pick a fight, you know, leaving the cow calls to the other guys and going in with just these threatening bugles and picking fights with the herd bull. And I learned that in Washington. I learned it in the North Country of Idaho, where it's just absolutely so thick that's the best method for getting these big bulls in. Now, since then, I have changed. You know, I've moved over here to Montana, and even when I was still a Washingtonian, I started hunting areas that were a little more open and where I was able to glass more. And you know, these days I find myself seeking out those type places. You know, I'm not hunting the thick country as much anymore. I'm looking for states. I'm looking for opportunity hunts where I can go try to glass up more bulls, or even just, you know, I can still be out there and I'm, you know, I chuck a lot of location bugles out just to get an idea where the bulls are, find the herd, you know, find the best bull. And then I put a lot of work into glassing and trying to figure out a strategy on how I can either get in between, you know, or just figure out a way to get an arrow in that bull in more open country. So I really enjoy this time where I'm chasing, you know, herd bulls in open country. I'm not calling as much, not even close. I'm still doing a lot of location bugles just to find them, because there's always pockets of timber, and you know they love bedding in that timber. But I don't try to work bulls in as much as I used to, for sure. And I think that's been probably the biggest change for me, especially with the bigger herd bulls. But I really do enjoy calling elk in. It's a lot of fun. But man, the spot and stock game for me right now is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, and I'm in the same boat where, you know, growing up hunting almost exclusively Southwest Washington, we called everything in, and it seemed, I don't want to say easy, but it almost seemed easy at times. You located him, got in tight, and you could eventually get him to close the distance. As times went on, it seems like you're trying to force a square peg in a round hole at times. Now, we've still got them cranked up. We've killed a lot of great bulls, but it's just not, even when we started hunting out of state and you know, over the West, it seemed easier just 10 years ago. And I don't know if we're to blame, pressure, the calling industry, everybody out there calling, you know, whether you got a tag or not. Like, I don't, I'll shoulder some of it, but the elk aren't as callable as they used to be.
You've turned a lot of guys into pretty dang good callers. There's a lot more better, like really good callers out there in the woods these days. They'll fool you for sure. There's some really good callers.
And as much as it hurts, we've turned into a little bit more of 10 years ago, I'd have never questioned, should I bugle right now, or should I cow call, or should I go silent? And now that's like my common routine. Like, do I really want to bugle here? Because it hasn't worked the last 4 or 5 times, and things are privy to it and heading the other way. And, you know, like this year's the first year ever I located a bull, went completely silent, and snuck into 40 yards. Like, as much as it hurts me to say, I knew as a hunter, like, I've got this skill set, maybe not near as good as you or Barney or guys that spot and stalk all the time, but it's an animal that I just can't let see, hear, or smell me, right? Like, it's a very simple equation. Don't let him see you, hear you, or smell you. You're going to be all right. And just put the sneak on him. Put his head behind a log or a standing tree that was big enough for me to hide behind, and walk into 40 yards. And it is getting different. I would say I'm in the same boat. As much, I still try to at least force it early in a hunt. Like, I'm going to call these things in. But you know, like this,
I think it's important to have all the tools in your toolbox, right? For sure. I think, you know, you want to be really competent in your calling. You know, this year's bull just happened to be a bull that it was in much more open country, still some timber, but you know, I got in between him and his bedding area, and I was able to get an arrow in this bull. Last year, you know, I went in trying to be silent. I just wasn't able to get in to where this bull was bedded. And I called that bull in. You know, I got in tight, just like the old days that worked so well. I got in tight, made just an absolute, monster threatening bugle at him, and he came tearing in, ready to kill me. and that worked in that situation. So, I don't want to eliminate any of the strategies. I think having them all in your toolbox is really important. And, there's going to be times in the future where I calf call a bull in. That's what's going to work that day. And so I think just, not putting anything aside, everything's got to be on the table, but I'm definitely trying to do less calling in a lot of the areas that I'm hunting now.
Yeah. And I think being a skilled hunter in that situation is recognizing like what you should maybe do. Like, are they in a good stockable spot? And recognizing that, like, that's more important than being a good caller, having all these tools that you're not, leaning on your calling primarily. You're not just leaning on your spot and stock. Like, at any time, if that situation, dictates you should be doing this or should try this, being able to do that or execute it well. I agree with you. Have all of those tools and don't limit yourself to one style of elk hunting.
Absolutely. And, I look forward to one of these years. I'm going to get back to the old hunts that I used to hunt. And I don't know about Washington, but Idaho, some of the thick country. And I guarantee there's going to be times where I want to pick a fight, or at least pick a fight with a limb and start raking. I really like raking too. It worked so well for so many years back in the day. I don't know if it works as well now in those places in Washington where raking in a bull. I think a lot more guys are doing it, but they may be keyed into a little bit more than they used to be. But yeah, all the tools, I think they're important to have, and no one situation is always going to be the same. So
yeah. We had you on back on episode 35 where we did the spring bear episode. So this question may have the answer in there, I'm sure, but maybe you can give like a real quick Cliff Note version. How do you go about locating spring bears early in the season? This comes from Parker Batista.
Yeah, early season. I love that very, very front end, because it's just my opinion, but I feel like that is your absolute best time to locate those older boars. I don't know what the science shows. I don't know what the professionals say, but it feels like, and maybe you got something to add to this, Jason, but I'm finding the biggest boars, like the biggest ones on the mountain, are the first ones I see. And after that, come the mediums, and then the sows and cubs are kind of the last to show. Has that been the case for you? Because it sure has for me. I always feel like that. It's always going to be one of the days in April where we just, we lay eyes on that first bear. He's usually a monster. And, where I like to focus my efforts is in, big drainages with a lot of water. I like to be there just ahead of green up, and those big boars, man, I've found in the places that I've hunted them, it almost is like they're on that green line where the green is just coming up, sometimes even above it a little bit. Like, you don't even know what they're doing up there eating. Avalanche lilies and things like that. But
yeah, I wish I had as much spring bear experience, but I've hunted 5 times. It's all been in Washington down in the Blues. Mm-hmm. And we get such a late start. May 15th, the year I drew it was the COVID year where they didn't even, evidently they thought we were going to get COVID out in the woods. And that we didn't want to give it to the bears. So they made us start really late. And so all of our experience has been more that mid-May, with still kind of fighting that snow line, pretty low. At least the one year we did have early, I think those bigger boars, we seen them earlier in the trips, and then as we went back trip after trip and tried to make it happen, I think the bears were getting smaller. So I would agree with that. I just don't have near as much experience like into that early April, early May time frame, where we're typically, if we're starting right off the bat, it's middle of May, and usually we elect to wait a little bit because there is so much snow or the access is so hard.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think where I really like to focus my efforts for big boars early season, I love that April timeframe, and I don't want to be too late in the season. Like May is great too, and then into June, some guys love hunting the rut. I just like being on the front end. Just best opportunity. You don't see as many bears, but I really like that time where almost everything is brown. There's just a little bit of green just barely starting to show up. That's the time frame for me where I feel like I'm going to have my best luck at the biggest bear on the mountain. So
okay, gotcha. The last question, I'm not privy to it. Maybe you are. Tell us more about the trekking pole glassing method. Maybe Go Hunt had just talked about it. I don't know if there's a specific method or something different than typical, but enlighten me.
Yeah, I don't know either.
That came from Nate Stevens.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not sure what they talked about over at Go Hunt. Yeah, trekking pole glassing thing, I'm assuming it's just running your binos on top of the trekker, right? I do that all the time.
I would think.
Yeah.
Or on top of your bow cam or whatever you've got, you can lean into the ground.
Yeah, it's a real quick way to just like get solid real fast and not have to pull the tripod out and get your binos on the tripod. So no, I use it all the time. No, I mean, it's almost just as good as a tripod in many cases.
Yeah.
But
does your, do the Peak Design, do the Sissy sticks have a thread in the top yet? Like the old Easton trekking poles did, where you can like thread them on and use it? I don't know if that's patented, but something you guys should look into.
For sure, yeah.
They had that like 5/8 stud that would like, you have a cap that would go over your trekking pole, and then you could just thread your holder on. And then when you didn't want to use them, that cap would come back down. Just throw that out for you guys. I didn't know if you guys did, or I knew an old set of Eastons I had did have those, but it made it slick back when I had my binos hooked up, and you could just thread them on real quick, and then you didn't have to worry about like holding on, or you could, if you're going to set it for a little bit longer. Yeah, there you go. Yep. I'll pass that on. I don't know if you're going to answer these questions or not. It was a pretty popular question, but now that you're not in Washington, are you willing to give up your mule deer and Roosevelt elk hunting spots?
Yeah, surprising how many people have reached out with that one, Jason. But it was more like right after I left Washington. There was a lot of guys like really thinking that I would just give them the spots. So, my best hunting buddy, who I've hunted with more than anybody, and that's Joey Pyburn. He's still over there in Washington. He knows all the spots. We used to hunt these spots together, and for years, I told him, I was like, because he got into this waterfowl thing, and he does a lot of fishing now. He doesn't do the big game hunting that we used to do. He's gonna hate me airing this out there for him, but it's true. He needs to hunt big game more. But I told him, like, look, there's a little window here. You better keep getting after these spots. We have some really good old hunts that we used to hunt. Otherwise, I'm going to have to give them up. So he's got a little bit more time. If he doesn't start taking advantage of his time over there into these places where we used to kill big bucks, I might start having to give these spots up. But at this point, I have plans. Like I will come back to Washington one of these years. I want to just come back and hunt some mule deer, in late October there, like we used to. And I really want to go back and see if anybody has found these areas. I'm really curious about that. I've heard there's a lot more hunters over there stomping around in the mountains these days than there used to be. So, it really intrigues me to see how things have changed and if there are still some big old bucks in these really secluded places. But selfishly, those areas are probably going to be just for us folks that have been there before.
Yep. I don't blame you. And then somebody else wanted to know about your hair health routine on 10-day backpack trips, but
if you've seen the videos, there is no routine. It drives my wife crazy. Like the dreadlocks I have to rip out at the end of the trip. It just drives her crazy. My daughter's trying to get me to pack a hairbrush. It's just nonsense. It embarrasses them, but it's kind of why I do it. So no routine, no brush, no anything. I was gonna
say, if your daughter starts to backpack with you more and more, she'll have to pack the brush, and you can just take advantage of it.
She's tried to get that brush into my hair. She definitely packs her brush on the trips that we take. So I just keep it out of my hair.
All right. Well, I appreciate answering all those questions, Ryan. A little longer version of our typical question and answer for our guests, but we went out specifically looking for these. Once again, you have questions for me or my guests, please feel free to email them to us at ctd@phelpsgamecalls.com or hit us up on social media. Send us a message, and we'll do our best to get those thrown in. Stole a little bit of my thunder there with some of their questions. We were going to talk about health and fitness, your training, diet, but we really covered that. And so we're just going to kind of jump into kind of your season recap 23. I think we go all the way back. We were both on Mexico Coues deer hunts. I don't think on episode 35 on the bear hunt we even really got into that. So I'm going to have you start with like your Coues whitetail trip, your spring bear season, and then we kind of fast forward to it. Our old season used to be our fall seasons, where you went Alaska moose, Alaska blacktail, Montana elk, and deer, and just kind of give us a rundown of those 6 hunts. And if there was any anything technical or tactical that you did specific to those hunts, or maybe change in elk behavior or deer behavior, moose, that kind of you had to adapt to and change to, that kind of maybe helped you out on those hunts?
Mm-hmm. So we're going back to Mexico. Is that where we want to start this?
Yep. Yeah, we'll start in Mexico. I don't think we ever talked about that here on Cutting the Distance.
Yeah. So, it was my first year down there, crossing the border. I've hunted coos on the north side of it for a handful of years, and just had an absolute blast. But this is the first opportunity that I've ever had to get across the border and go down and chase coos. And man, we had a blast. This was a place where, I didn't really know what to expect. There were 4 of us, myself, Brian, Brad, and Hunter, went down. Man, it just felt like a wilderness where we were. It was so wild, and there was just nothing around. Getting way back into this country that felt like just nobody's looking at these places, and not many people have seen it. And so, it came down to glassing, honestly. And for most coos deer hunters, I think they'd agree, just spending time behind the glass can't be stated, enough, because really good glass. I always run the higher power binos when I'm down there, a little bit more power spotter when I'm down there. You got to be so diligent with coos deer. Every time I end a coos deer hunt, it's the same thing. I walk away thinking, man, it was all about the time spent behind the glass, because those little buggers just disappear on you. I mean, you could be literally staring at a great buck, take your eyes out of the glass, go back, and he's gone forever. You just have no idea where he vanished to. But I think being very patient is a big virtue in coos deer hunting. If you don't have a lot of patience, might be a tough trip for you. So the particular trip that I went down on, this was not a high density area. I saw very few deer, very few bucks overall, which was a little bit shocking, but it was cool anyway. We were still finding good mature bucks, just not many deer in general. Now, I don't know if it was because it was a very wet year last year. There was water everywhere. And so, obviously kind of makes sense that they'd be spread out a little bit more. They're not so focused on these certain drainages. I don't know. We'll see, because we're going to the same place this year and we're going to check it out. But I think with coos deer, I always come away with it's all about the time spent behind the glass. And if you're not a very diligent glasser, if you're not willing to just keep those things, slammed onto your head, like just all day long, willing to do that, you're probably not going to see the deer. And, we've hunted with those guys that don't see many, and they just end up letting you do all the work and find them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in the same boat. Like I feel like I'm 3 times as good a glasser now that I've coos deer hunted when I come back to mule deer hunt. Like, this is easy now at this point because of the strategies we put together down there. You're either always in your binos, and I love setting up spots where if I climb up the mountain, I've got some good shooting lanes, 500, but then my glassing kind of goes across canyons, right? So I'm able to have a hunt that morning or that night, but then my glassing goes from, well, if they're not here, now I'm glassing for a stock. And I usually go from 10s. I didn't bring like the 12s or 15s or 18s. I went from 10s right into my spotter. And so my glassing requires me to be in that spotting scope all day, and just sit and walk the spotter. And similar to what you said, there were times where I would spot a deer, try to like get somebody on them. So I'm looking for landmarks and then I would look back in there. I'm like, damn it left. But it hadn't left. I just couldn't respot the deer. Or it was just standing, like you just couldn't pick it up. Or, last year a buck was pushing a doe. And so then you're kind of really fastly tracking them around the clear cut. And you would lose them at times. Or what we found on that time was we'd been glassing this clear cut only 700 yards away, not too extremely far with the spotting scope. And that buck went and found all these 5 or 6 does for us on the hillside we had never seen a deer on. And it was just, it's glassing at a different level, but I love it because it makes me better glasser. It lets me know that you're looking for ears, you're looking for horns, you're looking for a leg kicked out in a bed. Like, it prepares you for when I come home blacktail hunting or mule deer. Like, it's nothing for me to just sit in my spotter for an hour compared to 5 hours at a time down there. And
Yeah,
it definitely makes you a better glasser.
I mean, those little ghosts, they could just be standing all over a hillside, and if you're not really tuned in, you'll just run your binos right over them. What I find unique is, they're so similar to a mule deer. I hate that they're whitetail; it just bothers me. But they're so similar because you know how, for whatever reason, some of the biggest bucks that we've seen, they will statue for so long, Jason. Like, you can watch a buck statue up for 45 minutes and he doesn't move a muscle. And he's just there. He's in the oak brush or whatever. And if you're looking for movement, or if you're looking for the backside of the deer, things that are obvious, you're going to go right over that buck. So you really got to slow it down, really got to pay attention to the details of the Coues deer. And they're so tiny, so tiny.
Yep. Yeah, we see the same thing. Like, even though you're in the middle of the rut, like some of those bigger bucks, they just sit. And I'm like, why aren't you chasing? Why aren't you moving? But they'll sit there for 20, 25 minutes and just look, or, pay attention to what's going on the hillside. And
and when they get in those Ocotillas, like some of the biggest bucks we found have just been in the Ocotillas for whatever reason. They love it. And you're just looking for something a little bit unique, those, everything is up, vertical. And then you're just looking for an antler off to the side, and they will just statue in that stuff. And like you said, the does, I mean, they just disappear. They lay down, and you're looking for ears.
They're gone.
And that's about it.
Yep. So. Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to a new ranch this year we were at a ranch that had maybe a higher density, it sounds like, but maybe not the upper end of buck. So we're gonna mix it up this year and go try a little different area and see if we can't maybe find some bigger bucks. And I'm excited. It sounds like the nice thing about Mexico is private land, compared to up here north of the border, there's always a chance somebody else has hunted it, right? It's like if you just have a general tag, you can go hunt somebody's private, or if it's public, Mexico is nice because if you don't have one of the 4 tags that's good for that ranch, like nobody can deer hunt out the rest of the year. Like, it's left alone, and we're going to a spot I don't think's been hunted for like 6 years anyways. And then, so we're going to see, cool. We'll see what it
I'm excited. I'm excited. It's kind of a slower hunt. It's a great time to go down too, right? It's kind of the off season.
Yep.
It's always a little bit warmer. It's usually in the minus temps here in Montana at that time. So just a fun time to get down there. A handful of years ago, I never expected that I'd ever even hunt Mexico. Always wanted to, always thought about, opportunity to go hunt Sonora or whatever. But last year was my first opportunity to do it. And I'm addicted. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
That's awesome. And so from Coues deer, you rolled into spring bear, which, coming into this year, real low snowpack, pretty deep. Yep. How'd that pan out for you? And did it change the hunt at all?
Yeah, it was a tough year, honestly. The crew had a real rough go. On the front end, you say the snow was wanky. We struggled. Like, the first bear I took, I think I want to say I was like 16 days into it before I took that first bear. And I took one of the best bears I've ever taken, just an absolute stud. But I had to spend a lot of time. And we had bears that we'd spot, and they just disappear on us, how it goes. And they were moving off of those south facers so fast. They just weren't putting in the time. They weren't giving us time to get to them before they just move off. They were traveling. It was kind of just a weird year like that. I hadn't seen that for a while, but in the end, I took a couple of good bears, had a good season overall. I ended up with a wolf on the first trip and a cat at the same time. So I think we talked about that, but that was a heck of a trip. It really it forced us to be diligent on that one because it was a tough go. And we had to put in a lot of effort, a lot of work to fill those tags.
Yeah. So now you get to our fall seasons. Alaska moose was first on the docket.
It was actually, we went up and did a little blacktail trip up in Alaska with my daughter.
Before the
So that was an August trip. So we went up there in August, and kind of a first for me, something I'd wanted to do. But went up there, good crew of guys. Met a couple. We had met up in Fairbanks the prior year when we were at moose hunting. Dalton and his wife Tabitha, and we hooked up for a hunt, and went out. not really knowing what to expect. Just kind of located a pothole and went after it, landed on a pothole in some alpine country in southeast. And man, we had a heck of a trip. My daughter absolutely loved it. I prepared her for the worst, weather-wise. Just made sure I let her know, like, this could be a trip where we don't see the sun for a while, and it's going to be slippery. It's going to be steep. Just be ready for that. And Jason, we got there and we had 5 straight days of sunshine and beautiful weather. It was fairly warm, and we had deer on the mountain. They were shining like diamonds. They were red coated. She filled both her tags. I filled both mine. We all filled our tags that we had, and ended up with $7 and had one of the funnest trips you could possibly have. And my daughter just absolutely loved that trip. And, it's funny. I was talking to Dalton the other day, and he's like, "Hey, you want to do that trip again?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I don't ever want to do that trip again because we're going to go back and it's going to be a letdown. We had the best we could possibly have on this trip. Like, it could not have gone any better. We're going to go back and we're going to be a little bummed out because the weather's going to be sour and we're not going to see the quality bucks that we saw on that trip." So I was like, Dalton, it's one of those hunts that it went so well. I'll go somewhere else.
Leave it alone.
I'm just going to leave it.
Yep.
I'm going to leave it.
Gotcha.
And I think
Gotcha.
that was a really like a quality hunt with my daughter because the country was steep, but we didn't have to put the miles on that absolutely just crushed her soul. And we had, opportunities to get fairly close on these bucks. We went in with rifles and it was just a good opportunity for her to get behind the glass, and her to pick up these bucks on her own and make good shots and have just a heck of an experience. And we got it all on that one. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. She really enjoyed it. And
so
then
you came home, reloaded and went back for moose.
Went for moose. And that was a trip with Brady Miller, myself, and Brian Call. And we went up. This was year 2 in a row. Totally different location, new area. And again, we had a heck of a trip. It was a lot tougher area than the area we'd hunted in the past, much more open. But this place was thick. We found some bulls, not many. We ended up getting a great bull. Brady took a great bull. It took us quite a bit of work to get this bull out. It was miles in. And, I know the smart thing to do is not kill a bull moose too far from your pickup or your boat but we did. And we were just like, we're going to do whatever it takes to get this bull out. And we did, we got it out of there. We had some bear issues. Unfortunately, our first load out was taken from us. Went back with load 2 and bear got on and took 3 of the bags and buried it. As we got close back to the first drop, we kind of hit a meadow that we had to cross through before we got to where we dropped the meat. And we had a bear that there was one piece of meat just out in the middle, of this meadow that we're like, that didn't fall out of our pack. Like, how did that get there? And we started kind of looping around and looking. I saw this area within the meadow that was just all shredded, and he had buried all that meat in there. So we had to make a new pickup point for the plane and all that. But it's quite an experience. Had a heck of a go. Learned a lot. Totally new country from where we had hunted prior. So already looking forward to next year. Every year I'm trying to figure out the cheapest way to do these moose hunts. And that's been a challenge. They're not, they cost you a little bit, but man, they are a ton of fun. A lot of work though. Yeah. A lot of work. There's nothing easy about a moose hunt. So I would recommend it to anybody who, is getting up there in years and thinks they're going to do it when they get, into their 60s. It probably ain't going to happen. Moving moose meat is not easy. So I want to get it in while I can. My body's still
for sure
able to do it.
And then normal fall season rolls around, you've got your Montana elk and deer tags, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so you come home September and roll right into your elk hunt.
Right into the elk hunt. Yeah, I went and did that. Had a ton of fun. Put a lot of days into my archery elk season and found a really quality bull that I wanted. And it was 16 days that I went after this thing, and And I finally sealed the deal on this just absolute heavy horn stud of an old bull that I wanted. And that trip couldn't have gone any better. I had it. It was all to myself. Jason, there was no film crew. There was no camera guys. There was none of that. There was no hunting partners. It was just me. And I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. In that 16 days, so if I didn't know you, like, well, what took so long? Or if people did, was it a balance of like getting him in the right spot, or just failed attempts, or just shadowing not to screw it up, or was he moving major distance between days? Like, what happened within that 16 days?
So within that 16 days, like, I didn't find this bull right away. Now this was a bull that we think we may have seen in the summer, but in some of our scouting, but we're not 100% sure. You never know. I think the front end of that, I wanted to just see as many bulls as I possibly could. So I was very non-willing to commit to a bull. I wanted to put in a week's worth of glassing and just looking around and scouting, because I had the time. So I just didn't want the hunt to end too early. And so a lot of that 16 days was just me trying to find the right bull in the right scenario, the right situation. And this was a battle of public and private. We were, you'd see bulls out on private like you always do. And I usually don't hunt too close to private, but this time I was, and I wanted that challenge. And yeah, there were some times when I finally found this bull. I was about 10 days in, and at that point, this bull was literally traveling 5 miles from where he would bed to where he would feed. And he would rut all night. And so there's this huge distance between that. And, he would, some days he'd call a lot, some days he wouldn't call hardly at all in his travel from feed area to bedding area. And there was a lot of it was a maze of coulees that he would travel. He wasn't always doing the same one twice. I find it funny when people say that, oh, he's going to go through this one spot every single time. Man, I've never found that to be the case. They always do something a little bit differently, especially when you're trying to get them with a bow. So, sometimes I just picked the wrong canyon, trying to get in front of them. And I did not feel like this was a bull that I was ever going to be able to call in. It was fairly open country. He had a lot of cows with him. And the way these coulees laid out, I had a really good opportunity. If I picked the right one, that I would get a nice close shot. So I played that game over and over and over, and I screwed it up more times than I succeeded. But in the end, I finally got it right. I picked the right one, and it was a day that he was just fired up because there was another big old stud herd bull with his cows not too far away. It just kept him going the whole time, and I sealed the deal that day. But yeah, just a great bull, stud bull. But I really wasn't willing to settle at that point. Once I found that bull, man, it was like I was going to do whatever it took to go after him. So, yeah.
And in that 6 days where you actually were hunting him, like, do you go at it aggressively, or are you playing the long play? Like, my goal is not to let him see me, not to ever bump him, not to let him smell me. Like, you're making sure that you're not going to screw it up for that time or in the future.
Yeah. I think I play it extremely slow and extremely patient. I know there's times to be aggressive, but I am very, very lucky. I know how lucky I am to have the time to spend out there. And the last thing I want to do is screw up an opportunity on a big bull or buck, whatever it is. So I play the slow game, frustratingly, probably to others, but I am really, really, really conservative, especially on the spot and stock stuff. A little bit more aggressive when it comes to calling, but when I'm just doing the spot and stock thing, I really want to make sure that I'm not blowing this bull out, really focused on keeping the wind right. If it's 50-50, I'm not doing it. And all that changes if my time is more limited. If I only have a weekend, man, I'm going to be the most aggressive guy in the woods that day. Yeah. But when you have the time, and I did, man, I was taking all the precautions. So there was times where my day would be over as soon as he got to his bedding area, because this is a bull that would not make a peep. He wouldn't moan. He wouldn't do anything once he hit that bed. Just wouldn't say anything. Gave me no opportunities to sneak into him. And he had a huge group of cows. So that was a problem as well.
And he wouldn't come out of the bedding area till late. And so he was just
late.
Over, and the wind would be wrong.
And they were practically run. They'd get up about 3:30, and they would basically, they would just fly to back to that feed zone. And they would go from public back onto private. Once they go onto the private, it's game over. And the other direction as well. I had to wait for them to get onto the public. So it was a chess game for sure. A lot of fun.
Gotcha. And the other thing that probably weighs in your decision is that you were in a spot where there weren't people, right? If there are other people around, you may have had to been more aggressive or tried to capitalize on their screw ups or them messing things up. So that's another bonus to being able to go deeper, get into these areas it's not comfortable to be in or survive in for a long time.
That's a good point.
You had that luxury.
Good factor. I mean, the fact that if there were people there and I felt like this bull was in jeopardy of getting arrowed by somebody else, your aggression is going to go up 100%. I would have went at it a lot differently, but I had nobody in the area. There was nobody in there. And it just felt like my best opportunity is to play the slow game. So that's what I did on that bull. And could have been very different if there were, another group of guys chasing that same bull. I probably would have been a lot more aggressive for sure. Gotcha. But all those factors kind of weigh in on how you approach each and every, mature bull that you're going for. It's always a little bit different. But that's why I hunt unmolested animals in these somewhat remote places. This area was pretty remote, but it was only a few miles in, and then it took me 7-8 miles in. But it was pretty remote. There just wasn't anybody there. So
gotcha. And then you got to. I don't know what you did early October, but then I know you and Paley went back out for your guys' Montana deer hunt. Yeah. And was there anything in between there, or was it just a little bit of a rest there?
She had drawn a buck antelope tag, so we went out. We had one day to do it. We went out there. We had a busy schedule, so we went out there for a day, not too far from the house here, and got her first buck antelope. That was a ton of fun. Antelope are just different. It's not like the biggest challenge in the world, but when you're hunting with your kid and you get to go through all the things, crawling in on a buck, trying to get as tight as you can, and just playing the patience game, playing the wind, all those things. It just ends up being one of the funnest hunts of the year, even though it just lasted a day. And so we got her a really nice buck. And, being last day, it was November, I want to say 12th or something like that. Those sheets come off pretty easy at that time of the year. And he was already missing one of his sheets. And then Paley, when we got up to it, she went to move it and she grabbed that one sheath and she tried to move it a little bit and it popped right off. And then we got to talk about that and when they lose those things and how they regrow and all that kind of thing. So fun experience. And then, cool. After that we went, November, we always hunt mule deer here in our home state. And we had a great trip. Me and this was our maiden voyage with our new goats this year. I'd been putting a lot of time in hiking them out around the house here on trails and getting them in shape. And this was a trip that we got to take them out. I took all 6. And me, Kym, and Paley went out and had 3 deer tags, filled them all. Had a ton of fun. My daughter impressed me even more than she did the last time. She made a perfect shot on a buck that she glassed up herself. And she actually passed on it because it was the first day when she first found it, which is pretty good. Kind of warms your heart, 14-year-old. She's passing on bucks, pretty good bucks. Just wanting to see what's over the next ridge, So we spent the whole next day out there looking at quite a few bucks, probably another dozen deer that day. And by the end of the day, she determined, that buck that I passed on was one that she was pretty excited about. So we went back and we relocated it, had him bedded up, and I let her take bedded buck shots now. She's such a good shooter that, this thing never even got up again. 2 in a row for her on bedded bucks, but had a heck of a time. And, we're very lucky on the weather this year, Jason. I mean, I don't remember a November in Montana where we were dealing with weather in the upper 40s and in the 50s, right? Now we were still getting the ruddy bucks, but man, you're expecting like wind. We had no wind ever. And like we had one little snowstorm come through, but for the most part, it was sunny, it was warm, unseasonably warm for November, and it was almost too easy. And we had a heck of a fun time, but glassed up a ton of deer, and just another hunt that I got to spend time with Paley and just try to teach her everything that I possibly can about glassing up deer, where to look, what to do when we see them, like asking her questions about how do you think we should approach this buck, things like that. And it ends up being a good learning experience for him.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things, taking my son Hunter to, he's 14, and like asking him, like, there's a deer here, we want to go shoot that one, like, and then you might pick the wrong route, or maybe picks the right route, and then is just throughout the week he's starting to pick like better routes where I'm going to go there so he can't see me the whole way, and then I'm like, well, how do you know you're going to be close enough? Well, he's like, well, let me see your rangefinder. And so he can like shoot the two spots. He's like, well, it's not a straight line, but it should be about here, or he's like, well, if I had onX, I'd be able to just look how far that ridge is to where I think he's at, and so it's cool to like see it start to click in his head versus just doing what dad says. He's like, all right, I'm going to start figuring, I'm going to start giving you my answers and then confirm it or give me some other advice. And for him, same with my wife, she shoots a lot of bedded bucks. Cause for me, it's absolutely easier if that thing's not moving to just get the gun, dialed in, like you're such a good shot. But that's one thing I found with my son, we need to work on is like target acquisition, where it's like us, we've did it so many times, like very quickly, if a deer takes off 100 yards, I'll have it in the scope very quickly and at least have a chance. Where we had a whitetail zipping around, like Hunter couldn't get on it. It's like, that's like that was a weak link in the game where, maybe we shouldn't be making it such a hurry, but at times if it's the right animal and that's your only opportunity, you need to try to capitalize. But that's target acquisition is our big downfall right now. You do everything else right to that time, and then you can't get the gun on them when they're in the
that's tough. That's the same with Paley, target acquisition. You and I are really good at it. I mean, you could have it at 10 power and get your rifle immediately on that deer at whatever, 100 yards, 200 yards. But Paley's really good about backing that thing all the way back out to 4 and then finding it and then just swiveling it in. And she's gotten really good at that. So she's figured it out. But awesome. I love having that opportunity to just ask her questions like, so what's your gut tell you we should do right here? Like, where do you think that buck went? In these places that we've already been to, and she's getting pretty good. We're starting to figure it out.
That's awesome. Well, that kind of wraps up your season. Some of the how-tos or what mattered on these specific hunts and what's next. So I know I probably won't get to see you this year at the Western Hunt because these show promoters decided to put everything on the same exact week this year. So I don't know if I do the short straw, if it's just because I live, fortunately, that's really an unfortunately on Western Washington. I'm going to get stuck at the Portland show. Dirk's going to be out there, but you'll probably be at the Western Hunt. And then you've got some pretty exciting stuff coming up on the bear.
We're doing a little bear tour.
Instructional.
Yeah, it's kind of something different than I never wanted to do this. Let me put that out there right now. Like, this is not my thing. I don't like getting in front of people. I don't like eyeballs on me. But somehow the fellas talked me into this. So we're doing a little Western bear tour. It involves 3 states. So we're doing one in Missoula, we're doing one in Boise, and we're doing one down in Salt Lake City. And these are all in the month of March. They're 2-day events, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. This is kind of a total immersion into bear hunting. We're going to talk about everything. And, for guys interested in, I don't need to go through all the details of it, but, go to treelineacademy.net and you can kind of see what the Western Bear Tour encompasses. It's very detailed on everything that we're going to talk about. Everything from just having Q&As to very, very detailed discussions on everything bear. And that's going to involve me, Mark Livesay, Brian Call, and Brad Hunt. And we're going to have fun with this. It's going to be, I'm going to be nervous as heck just getting in front of that many folks talking about stuff, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to, I guess, get out of my comfort zone and do this thing. So
that'll be fun and different. It seems like bear hunting is a topic of a lot of, it's either picking up steam and what I am going to sign you guys up for, what you don't know, is I'm going to sign you guys up to come talk with the WDFW commissioners when you're done with your little bear tour, and you can like summarize what you found about bear hunters and people wanting to get into it for them.
Yeah, we should do that, right? Oh man, I want to stay away from those guys over in Washington. But I think overall we're going to have a lot of fun with this. I think anybody who attends, they're going to get a lot out of it. We're going to have a little movie night in there too. Brian's putting together some films that'll be seen there, and 2-day kind of all immersion into bear things. So
and a guy being lucky enough to attend 3 of your hunt summits now, I believe, maybe 2. If it's anything like your guys' Western Hunt Summits, like this thing you guys will knock it out of the park. It'll be well worth the time. So head over to what's the link again, Ryan?
It's
for people to check out and find out some more information.
So if you go to treelineacademy.net, there's a link there that takes you to the Western Bear Tour page there. So, and all the information is there for it. And there's different passes that you can kind of look at as far as what you're looking for, but a lot of information.
Gotcha. Nice. I was lucky enough. I was going to guarantee I was going to do some Idaho spring bear hunting this year, but I was lucky enough to draw one of the statewide hound hunter permits. So I'm stoked to go over there. I'll get to chase some cats early, cool. And then I might just end up running behind some following the dogs around on that bear season as well. While I got my 1 year pass to hunt Idaho.
That's so cool.
Animals behind hounds. So
I can't wait to hear about it. Yeah. I'm excited to hear how that all goes for you.
Excited for that. Well, we all know how much Ryan loves to talk to people. So if you're at Western Hunt, you guys can go find him probably in the Peak booth. And if you don't see him around there, you can probably check one of the tents. He likes to hang out there and get away from people in the tents. And then go check out his bear summit that they're going to do in those 3 locations. And if you want to learn more about deer elk, he's got the Western Hunt Summits, I believe. Both deer elk are mixed or archery. I don't remember how they're all broken up now. I usually just go to the elk one, but there's lots of ways to get to Ryan, and don't let him fool you. He loves to talk to you guys, just more on a one-on-one, not so much in a group setting.
That's it. Yeah, I can handle it when it's just like a one-on-one we're talking. That's why I do these summits and they're a ton of fun. But I don't like giving presentations. I do like having conversations in the backdrop, though. But yeah, Western Hunt Expo is kind of next, and that's the show that we're going to be doing. And we always have a ton of fun down there. Me and my wife go down with the kids, and we will be hanging at the Peaks booth this year. So
yep. And unfortunately, I will be in. No, I always have a great time at Portland as well. It's just sometimes it kind of sucks. The Western Hunt's such a good show, but we'll have to catch you on the next Western Hunt show. Hopefully, the promoters get their stuff together and not over schedule on top of each other. But as always, Ryan, really appreciate having you on. Great answers on all those questions, and then it's always nice to kind of relive your season. So appreciate it, and good luck on everything coming forward in 24.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. You as well.
Yep. Bye.
Take care.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Pint Night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.